Houston Real Estate Radio.
Welcome back to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shanna Register.
And I'm James Brown. And we're here this segment with Colonel Sean Seibert, who is a candidate for District 18, U.S. House of Representatives.
It's great to be here.
Thanks, Sean. So he's going to talk to us today about redistricting. But before you do that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your candidacy?
Sure. I'm a 29-year Army veteran. My last assignment was with the 82nd Airborne Division in Afghanistan, where I worked on the Afghan-Pakistan border and led a task force there and also did negotiations with the Pakistanis and Afghans. My background is law enforcement, military police. I've worked on counterterrorism and working on combating human trafficking throughout the world with the military. I grew up in the Chicago area, the Dallas area, and my mother is an immigrant, so I understand multiculturals, and she taught me a multicultural view of the world, and I've lived in different cultures. I got started in this when Ted Poe recruited me to come run for office when I got back from Afghanistan.
And what is your main platform?
The main thing is, I got into this because of our future for our children and our grandchildren. Mm-hmm. We have a debt now that is
unbelievable.
Yes. Back, like I told people before, the numbers we have for our debt are what I called in college astronomical numbers. It's now surpassed that. We bring in $5 billion a day in revenue. We spend $9 billion a day. We got to reduce that spending to match our revenue. I want to be able to reduce that, start creating jobs, and the way government does not create jobs. Government creates an environment for business to create jobs by reducing regulation, reforming the tax code. I want to make sure we get the Keystone Pipeline opened up, get that bringing in here so we start getting some more independence on our energy. I want to work on our border security. We have a lot of good technology that's sitting in warehouses we used in Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to get that to our federal agencies to use on the border. And finally, make sure we have a good, strong national defense. And having a huge debt and a weak economy makes us have a weak national defense.
I definitely agree with a lot of what you said. Tell us a little bit about the redistricting of this area and how that affects.
Well, every 10 years we have a census. And after the census data comes in, the population shift changes. So each state legislation has to redistrict. And they redraw the lines based on population growth and movement. Texas got 4 new Congressional House seats.
4.
Because we had so much growth. Most of that was in the Hispanic community. Now, there's 13 states that fall underneath the Voter Rights Act due to past discrimination. And so once they draw the lines, then the Justice Department has to buy off on it, or you can bypass, which Texas did, and go to the courts. And apparently the courts did not buy off on it. There was 8 litigants going in it, and so it's still top in the courts. But they came up with a compromise map, which we'll go into this election for. And that changed districts drastically. For example, in the 18th district, it now goes from Sunnyside to Spring. Before, everything north of 1960 was in Congressional District 2, which is represented by Ted Poe, my mentor. Lots of people are trying to figure out why Sean Seibert has signs up here between Cypress Wood and
I bet your office has gotten a lot of calls.
Yes, yes, we have. And, of course, I get calls and emails. What are you doing advertising up here? This is not your district. This is Ted's district. We show them the map. They call back and say, how can I help you?
So a lot of people are going to find some strange names on the ballots this year.
Yes, they have. And the biggest problem is the parties have tried, and the media has tried to get this out to educate people, but majority of people just haven't learned about it. Even though it's on your voter registration card, tells you what congressional district, what state district, all that, nobody reads that.
Is there a website you can go to that has the redistricting map? Or
yes, there is.
Okay.
There's a couple. You can go to the harriscounty.gov elections website. The state actually has a dedicated website for this, and I don't have it right off the top of my head, but if you type in Texas redistricting map, and I think it's Plan C 205 or 235 for the current map for congressional, you can find it on Google, Bing, or whichever search engine you use.
Okay.
So redistricting happens every 10 years, but how often does it end up with the court redrawing the lines at the legislature.
In Texas, apparently happens every year.
Really?
Every time we do it. The last time was with Tom DeLay. That was a big fiasco. Then back in the 80s when the Democrats ran the House, of course, they got sued. And it seems every year, every time, somebody jumps in. Because what happens is our current redistricting process, it's politicians picking voters, not voters picking politicians. And there's a lot of talk about making it an independent commission, taking it away from the politicians and the policymakers and let a bipartisan or nonpartisan civilian board do this. And there are some states that do that. I think it's Indiana, and I think California does that.
Is it successful in those states?
Yes, it is.
What's the whole reason behind the redistricting, this constant change?
Well, when the population growth, for example, a congressional district should have about 695,000. During the past 10 years, Mike McCall, who's in Congressional District 10, he had about 1.2 million constituents because of the population growth. The Congressional District 18, which was Sheila Jackson Lee, she had about 580,000 people. And so the disparity. So you want to keep about 695,000 people per congressional district. So they have to, when the population starts growing, you have to start chopping it up and changing it so you stay within the optimal number.
Chopping it up is an interesting way to say it because when you look at that map, it looks pretty chopped up.
Pretty choppy, yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking off air earlier about, oh, you should just use computers. They do. But then they manipulate the data in the computers to get a certain country club in or keep a certain neighborhood out. And it does get complicated, and it is
confusing as a consumer to look at that map, and it's not an easy to read.
No, and this
map.
is done at the state level. The state back in Austin, or any state capitals where they're doing it, happens in every state. Hence, we have gerrymandering.
How do you think that this redistricting is going to affect your campaign, or will it have a big impact?
It's going to have a huge impact because of this. I picked up the areas north of 1960, which is makes it one of the three top population centers of the 18th district. The three big population centers are north of 1960 along 45, down along 290 by Jersey Village, and then just south of downtown. Two of the three have Orvis ratings, which are optimal Republican voting strength above 50%. So if I can turn everybody out north of 1960 to vote for me, that's about 40,000 votes. If I can get everybody down by the Jersey Village area to turn out and vote for me, that's about 25,000 votes. That puts me in the race to get my 86,000 votes I need to win.
They say someone once said all politics is local. What would you be able to do at the congressional level that would benefit people in such a disparity of areas of town?
Well, the key thing is I look at the federal government from my military experience. I look at it like a corps level. If you're in the Navy, it'd be like the Air Battle Group. That we provide the support downward. I don't need the federal government does not dictate to the states or the cities. We provide the support. So I'll be working with the local elected officials inside the 18th district to find out how can we, the federal government, provide support. What support do you need to improve these programs, such as decreasing the high school dropout rate, which the 18th district has the highest of, improving the jobs. How do we get businesses into the 18th? 18th district has, three major interstates, has major rail lines, has a port next to it, has a major airport, has a great labor pool, and some of the real estate over on the east side of it is not that expensive. And have a great place to bring in people, like, for example, when Boeing was looking for a manufacturing plant, they went to South Carolina. As a congressman, I'm going to have people in my office reaching out to businesses and manufacturers, say, hey, look at the 18th. This is what we have to offer, and recruit them into the 18th district to bring their businesses so they can start employing our people here in the 18th.
Very good. All right, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk more with Sean and James. We'll be right back on Houston Real Estate Radio.